Welcome first group, UNICEF Dominican Republic. We have Elena, Ankita, we have Cathy and Khayria. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here. My name is Elena del Rivero, and these are my teammates, Khayria Mansouri, Wang, and Ankita Goyal. And we did our global policy project in collaboration with UNICEF Dominican Republic Country Office, and it's titled Paths to Participation, Analyzing Adolescent Participation in the Dominican Republic. Here's a brief overview of the structure of our presentation. We have 4 sections: scope and purpose, the context, the findings, and we conclude with our recommendations. The purpose of our research was to examine the beliefs, the barriers, and enabling conditions that allow adolescents to meaningfully participate in processes that concern them. To that effect, our methodology entailed extensive literature review on adolescent participation, as well as our findings from fieldwork. We conducted 18 interviews in Santo Domingo and Bani, with a diverse range of actors that represented a diverse range of perspectives, including young people, government agencies, international organizations, civil society organizations, as well as youth organizations. Adolescence is a period of transition from childhood to adulthood, and it historically hasn't been given the attention that it requires. It is a period of many changes for the adolescent, and this is why our research is important, as adolescents aged 10 to 19 years old represent approximately 17% of the Dominican population. We needed to understand 3 key elements of the current situation of adolescent participation in the Dominican Republic. These are the national legal framework, the existing programs for adolescent participation, and the agents of change, those who have been pivotal in promoting and increasing adolescent participation. Before we progress any further, we need to understand what the right to participation is. The right to participation is to be informed, to be involved, and having influence over decisions and issues that affect the adolescent's life, with their families, at school, in their communities, and even in national governance processes. For the analysis of our findings, we used 4 elements that represent the requirements for meaningful adolescent participation. These are voice, space, influence, and audience. With that, we're going to turn into our findings section with Khayria.
Thank you, Elena. Adolescents are not passive recipients of help. They are full individuals who can engage with policies and programs using the knowledge and insight garnered from their own respective lives. UNICEF and other stakeholders agreed that adolescent participation means any action, alone or in a group, where adolescents are working to improve their local conditions. There are already many ways for them to get involved, either through youth forums or public forums or youth councils. However, moving from simply being involved and included to meaningfully participating is a frustrating journey. While often youth are asked for feedback, but feel like that feedback is neglected or diluted. One participant put it as, it's occupying a space, but not participating in it. This disconnect has led to a growing belief that adolescents can design programs from the bottom up. One facilitator shared, if youth don't like it, something in the program, they can change it. They organize one themselves. Instead of adults deciding for adolescents, adolescents can be co-creators of the programs that will serve them. When adolescents are excluded, they lose motivation and confidence in the ability for them to make change. But when they are trusted to lead by choosing their own leaders, setting goals, and decision-making, they gain the skills that support a strong democracy. Thoughtful discussion, responsibility. These experiences not only help them grow as individuals, but help make democracies more inclusive and responsive to everyone's voice. Adolescent participation is a long-term investment in adolescent development. As one participant shared, when I started engaging with the modules on rights and protections, I started to realize, wow, what I'm experiencing at home is actually violence. Meaningful participation can lead to new awareness and eventually greater protection and change. But participation is not always equal. In the DR, girls are showing up more and more to these programs, and yet boys are the ones who are leading. Our fieldwork revealed that there are understandings of men's work or women's work. And because most participation is unpaid, boys especially, with expectations of them providing, are deciding whether or not this is worth it. As one girl leading a youth program explained, for them, it's more important to produce and earn money. There are thus clearly barriers to the right to participate, and for that, Cathy will go deeper in depth.
Thank you, Khayria. Active listening facilitates meaningful changes. Based on interviews with adolescent, NGOs, and international organizations in the Dominican Republic, we conclude with two vital barriers which limit meaningful participation: structural barriers and institutional barriers. In terms of structural barriers, the adult-centrism has been seen as the most significant obstacle to meaningful participation. In the DR, youth are often undervalued, which reinforced by cultural conservatism. Consequently, sideline youth voices. For example, although the government provides participation programs actually clash with school hours, which make it impossible for many youth to attend. Gender roles and stereotypes are special in the Dominican Republic. As Khayria mentioned above, generally growth in DDR has faced more family restrictions, yet they show higher engagement in participation. However, they are often limited to non-leadership roles. The boys who less engaged in total actually assumed powerful roles when they do participate. This makes it hard to balance the gender equity in youth participation. Another realistic barrier is economic inequality and resource gap in the Dominican Republic. Financial constraints limit youth participation, especially in rural areas. It is because public transportation is expensive or even unavailable outside urban areas, and programs are mainly centralized in urban cities. A lack of sustainable funding makes meaningful participation become a privilege, not a right. Regarding institutional barriers, the lack of long-term enforcement mechanism has left the rights of participation largely unfulfilled. Agencies suffer from fragmentation and lack of shared agenda within the country. We are tired of saying the same thing again and again. The limit of many participation programs are symbolic, where youth are invited for appearance without providing actual respect to their decision-making abilities. Listening is always not enough. They need to be heard. Last but not least, the lack of standardized goals and communication among organizations, government bodies, and private sectors actually lead to duplication of efforts. Poor inter-organizational coordination thus become another significant barrier to meaningful youth participation. Now I'm going to pass to our colleague Ankita.
Thank you, Cathy, for that. So now let's look at what enables meaningful adolescent participation in the Dominican Republic. An emphasis on meaningful, because when we were on ground talking to stakeholders and rights holders, we kept coming back to this one core question. That was, what does it really take to create spaces for adolescents where they're not only present, but they're actually taken seriously, they're listened to, and they're active? So from everything that we heard and everything that we saw, we realized there were 5 core pillars that enable meaningful adolescent participation in Dominican Republic. The first is legal and policy framework. Second is institutional mechanisms. Third is government programs. Fourth is civil society and youth networks. That includes all the informal collectives. Lastly, peer and digital platforms. That includes all the WhatsApp groups and social media. Now, let's look at what enablers look like in practice. So through our research, we also identified some successful programs that adolescents mentioned were safe spaces for them. So take Altavoz, for example, that is UNICEF's Youth Advisory Council. And what adolescents shared with us, what made this space safe for them was that here, young people were not only present, they were leading discussions, they were shaping agendas, and they were driving campaigns. In fact, in 2023, Altavoz was one of the key consultative bodies in designing national adolescent strategy. And the second successful example is Dominican Scouts. Adolescents shared with us that here leadership grew over time. They shared that young people who were once participants in the program became coordinators and administrators of the very same program they were participating in. So when we looked at this through Lundy's model of participation, we specifically evaluated the space element, and we evaluated the gaps in the space element, asking one question, that is the space made for adolescents actually safe, accessible, and inclusive for them to freely express themselves? So in one of our focus groups, an older adolescent who had actually traveled from far to attend that focus group shared with us that I had to move because there was nothing for youth in my community. And another adolescent shared, they said they will follow up, but that's the last we hear of it. And this is something that we heard more than once in our interviews, that young people aren't just asking to be heard. They are asking for continuity. They're asking for follow through. They're asking that their voices matter after the meeting has ended. Okay, so before we move into the recommendations section, we would like to share our guiding principle behind deciding recommendations, and also one of the most powerful moments for us during the project. This was when a young person shared with us during a focus group with a quiet conviction, nada para nosotros, sin nosotros, pardon my pronunciation, that translates to nothing is for us without us. And we carried that statement so closely with us throughout the project because it speaks to the very heart of it. That is, that participation is not negotiation, it is not charity, it is not privilege, that it is a right. And right does not ask for permission. And what adolescents were asking was, they were asking to shift the power, not share the power. And what you see here is a picture of 2020 protest that was one of the largest youth-led mobilizations in DR. And it clearly is representative of the fact that participation has always been about reclaiming power, about making space when none is offered to the very youth. Okay, so to come up with recommendations, as part of our research, we also did a jurisdictional scan mapping successful initiatives across Latin America, looking at what has worked elsewhere and what can travel well to DR. So for government institutions, we recommend transport subsidies or something as simple as bus passes so that it helps low-income youth and rural youth to access civic spaces. For UNICEF and UN agencies, we suggest embedding feedback mechanisms, and what we are calling it is you said we did mechanism. So this will basically help to close the gap between consultation and action, and youngsters will know that their voices aren't just collected, but also acted upon. For civil societies and NGOs, we are suggesting investing directly in youth-led groups. For schools, we are suggesting a conceptual framework that participation should be a part of how learning happens in schools by embedding participation into the very curriculum of school. And for the private sector, we are recommending supporting youth-led innovation hubs that empower participation from the ground up. Okay, that brings us to the end of our presentation. But before we close, we would just want to pause, reflect, and express how deeply grateful we are to every person who welcomed us into their space, to every young person who shared their stories with us and trusted us with their stories. And lastly, everyone, UBC, Team UNICEF, and every voice that shaped the project. Thank you so much, Team UNICEF.
Thank you, team. Good delivery. Now we're welcoming our client. I think we have Felipe Ariani there. Hi, Ariani, welcome, and thank you for your trust. We are happy to have you here.
Hello, everyone. We also have the deputy representative of UNICEF, UNICEF's country office in Dominican Republic, Anjali Sanabria, with us.
Oh, that's perfect.
She would like to say a few words to the group.
Thank you, Anu. Please.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes. Hear well.
Okay, and you can see me?
Yes.
Beautifully. Okay. Okay, because I can. So maybe only a few words. I have to thank the team. I'm really, excited because your passion and commitment with this, presentation and with the investigation. Adolescent participation is in the heart of our work, and it's indeed a challenge because it's something that the society as the entire society is not prepared to have significant adolescent participation. So your investigation is really, really appreciated, and we will use it and be sure that in UNICEF we will move that recommendation because it's part of our strategy. Thank you very much. Congratulations. It was an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Ariane, do you have any questions?
Yes, I don't know if, well, we'll have time later on to say a few other words, I think. My question is for the girls. Besides the recommendations you guys gave based on the regional examples you got to examine, based on your visit to the Dominican Republic and the interviews you made with key actors in government and civil institutions, based on your experience here, which are particular recommendations that you could do based on the actionable steps that need to take place in order to increase and improve adolescent participation in the Dominican Republic?
Thank you, Rani, and thank you so much for the words. We really we're excited to be part of this project, so thank you so much. One of the first steps that I think are needed for adolescent participation is the feedback mechanisms, and that can be at the UN, UNICEF, UN agency level, but also with other partnerships that UNICEF has with local institutions, with local actors, that they really show how adolescents' inputs, opinions, voices are being used for the future, for future implementations of programs and everything that they're going to do in the future.
I can add to that. So I think second recommendation that would be very pragmatic considering the conditions there are in Dominican Republic is taken and derived from one of the examples that we studied was Peru's tablet distribution program. And what they did beautifully was they sort of addressed access before asking adolescents to participate, because we realized that one of the major barriers that exist in the DR is digital exclusion, and that exists because there are so many logistical barriers, and specifically to reach the most excluded voices, logistical barriers need to be dismantled. So we also recommend that that in collaboration with the government or in collaboration with private entities, that there are transport subsidies that are given to adolescents specifically in rural areas, or something as simple as bus passes for them to travel to urban cities and just experience and just be a part of the programs that are meant for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ariane. Maybe Brenda, who also supported the team, would like to make a question, or?
We also have Lilen.
Lilen,
is
yeah.
a social and behavior change officer, but I think Brenda would like to speak first.
I don't have questions. Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much here from the Dominican Republic and from the adolescent participation team. We want to say thank you for all the hard work that you did, for all the respect that you treat our partners, for all the best feelings that you had doing this. Thank you so much. It's difficult here in the Dominican Republic to be on time on the meetings because the traffic, and you always responsible and with the best feelings. Really, thank you so much and congratulations.
Lilen? No, it's okay.
Nothing more. I just want to thank the group, their commitment with the study, and all the patience that they have with us. Thank you very much for the results.
Thank you. Now, since I am the faculty lead, I will take a page from David Boyd and say, here's me asking the question. I was going to ask something along the lines of Ariane. However, Ariane took my question. And I want to ask you, because all of you belong, are originally from a different part of the world. And I remember that the first time you saw the issues, and can we participate, youth participation, rights of participation for adolescents? So what is it, your transferable learning to different countries of the world? What can be really a lesson learned or an issue learned from here?
Yeah, if I may start, I'm originally from Mexico. And many years ago, I used to remember that there were initiatives for young people to participate in democratic processes. There were youth elections, and they were a mock-up of the federal elections that were happening every 6 years. Unfortunately, those programs have disappeared with governments nowadays, but seeing the commitment, the passion that Dominican youth and adolescents have to make their community better, their society better, their country better, I think that can be an example, especially for other Latin American countries that have the similar social and economic context. Just seeing the passion that Dominican youth have was really inspiring. So I think I will leave it like that, and I don't know who wants to else.
It was kind of a running joke amongst us that every time we would walk in the DR, I would be like, oh my God, this is Libya. I'm from Libya, and I moved there when I was 10 years old, and I experienced the Arab Spring there, and it founded for me a lot of civic engagement and good governance, the relationships those two have, and how those two are mutually reinforcing. And meeting with the youth in Bani, for example, or over Zoom in Santo Domingo really inspired me in the sense that there's so much agency that people have, and there's so much initiative as well existing. And to use them as a resource to better our communities and to better the nation as a whole was something that I remember seeing parallels between Libya and the Dominican Republic. And I think that really enriched the experience for me.
Thank you. I'm come from China, and I think China is also extremely significant adult-centerism country. And actually, we have during our interview, we have a discussion about should we focus on participation right in the Dominican Republic? Because personally, I feel like the right to education, the right to health, the right to food, I personally feel like these are more important or significant for a country to solve. But like the conclusion for our discussion is that rights are parallel, and that really surprised me and reshaped my understanding of the role of adolescents play in the society. It's like everybody should care about their right, care about their space to speak since they were really young. And that really moved me, and I think I'm gonna continue work on it in the rest of my life.
Ankita?
I can add to that. I originally am from India, and like everyone, I saw a lot of parallels between Dominican Republic and India. But I think all in all, this experience sort of made me reflect on my own positionality, because although we came in as researchers and interviewers, it was almost after half of the trip that I realized, oh, we are youth as well. Like we are part of the story as well. And that was something that hit me hard, because even though there were a lot of cultural differences and a lot of differences between their youth and what I experienced in India, but one thing that was very similar, like everyone mentioned, was emotional resonance, that how we just want to shape the world around us. That was very powerful. And it honestly made me just think about how I occupy spaces and how privileged we are to be in this space where our voices are heard and where we are taken seriously. And I think it just made me reflect on my own personal and professional journey.
Thank you, Ankita, so much. We have time for one question from the audience. Anyone? Come on. Laila, please.
Thank you so much for that incredible presentation. Your slides were beautiful, by the way. I think my one question was, I loved also all the responses that you just said. My one question has to do with your engagement with adolescents. Well, we all engage with mostly adults or literature or I guess topics that might have been a little bit less challenging. How did your engagement with adolescents, like what was a big challenge that came out of that? How did you overcome it? And I guess what did you learn for the better?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, because of ethics constraints, we couldn't actually engage with anyone under 18. However, we had the privilege of being in conversation with 2 youth groups. One of them was Altavoz, the UNICEF's group. And what they told us, even though they are over 18, some of them were like in their early 20s, they told us that they have been participating in all of this process from a very young age, some as young as 12 years old, 13 years old. So even though they were what can be considered as an adult or a young adult, they have been following this process along. They have been through many institutions who have the opportunity to have programs for adolescent participation, and they just want to make things better for future generations. So like their efforts are worth the time.
Thank you so much. And the last word goes to you, Ariane. Any last words? And thank you for your trust as well. This is the 3rd time we have UNICEF, and you really inspire us. Ariane?
I just want to thank the group. I think the visit here to the Dominican Republic was amazing. They had the chance to visit and interview really interesting government institutions and civil rights institutions. And even though some of them canceled the last minute, we managed to make everything happen. I think the data that they got to recollect for this project was really, really good. And the final report will be great to develop different projects to enhance and improve adolescent participation here, along with the government here in the Dominican Republic. So I again want to thank all of the girls in the group. Working with you has been amazing, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much, Ariane.